On the retail front, there was some level of online adoption. However, with the pandemic, our knowledge partner, NielsenIQ, sees a strong emergence of omnichannel behaviour across FMCG and non-FMCG categories. This altered behaviour is here to stay. And to kick off the conference, we will learn how to do this and how this will shape the future of retail in a big way. So our keynote speaker has over 24 years of experience in market research, strategic planning, and brand development. He currently heads NielsenIQ's consumer insights business in Asia, the Pacific, and China. He also globally leads the team servicing FMCG manufacturers, online and offline retailers outside of the US, qualitative research unit, as well as the global consumer insights data scientist. Wow, guys, he also accepts questions. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Arslan Ashraf. So stay tuned, and he'll be back shortly. Bye.
Thanks, Myra, and good morning. Yes, we are living through the unprecedented times. This COVID-19 has greatly changed the shopping behavior and has also reshaped the retail landscape. But way before this COVID-19 pandemic was declared, the digital disruption was already increasing the share of e-commerce in the lives of consumers. So before I deep dive into the future of retail and how it is going to be impacted, I think it's important to understand that what were the emerging trends before the COVID-19 hit us. So the first one is that there was a steady online habits developing amongst the consumers. Although it was restricted to a fewer categories, but shoppers and consumers' paths to purchase was already changing. You know, earlier, the typical path to purchase was starting with the awareness, led by the research, purchased by the advocacy, influenced by the mass media, and it was always culminating at one point inside the store. Not anymore. So this digital innovation and the social media has really changed the way consumers have built their preferences and they go about the shopping. So now the shoppers are more relying on the wisdom of the crowd. They are looking at the recommendation and the reviews of the online shoppers, other shoppers, and then making their own decisions. So that's the first factor which we saw, which was emerging before pandemic. Similarly, more and more shoppers are looking for an experience. They want to do things rather than just purchasing things because, again, they want to share online. So therefore, there was always a need for having more and more experience even before the COVID-19. There is something called fear of missing out. This is something which is very typical for the consumers and the shoppers, but this media explosion has actually increased the sense and the feeling of FOMO, fear of missing out. Yeah. So therefore, there is higher need for more and more experiences rather than just shopping the product. And at the same time, this digital innovation has made the physical and the linguistic distances irrelevant. Now consumers have more exposure, and as a result of that, they are becoming more and more experimentative. And then the fourth one, and the last but not the least, is that the consumers are favoring those products and brands which are environment friendly, who are actually very honestly sharing their ingredients, or they have a very ethical ways of doing business. So these were the four emerging trends which we saw before the COVID-19, and then we had the COVID. So what are the key factors which have impacted the shopper behavior? The first and the foremost is that technology has permeated into each and every walk of life. So whether it's work from home or homeschooling, which has helped us to roll the wheel of economy or educate the future generations, or telemedicine, or having all the entertainment in our mobile phone or in our device, online shopping, online banking. So everything is now technology driven. And at the same time, there is a lot of uncertainty also, because the economy has contracted, people have lost their livelihoods. Actually, one of the Nielsen surveys identified that every three persons in Southeast Asia have directly impacted by the COVID-19. And this has led to their adjusted lifestyle. So they are more opting for confined spaces. Virtual is always preferred over physical, and they want to cautiously spend also in the market. And lastly, there is a higher sense of personal hygiene and the care of the body. So these are the emerging trends which have impacted the overall shopping behavior also. As a result of all these factors, what we are witnessing is higher level of online shopping. So even categories like fashion and personal care have witnessed more than 60% growth. This is something which is captured by our recent e-commerce survey. Normal groceries are also having 50 to 60% growth at the overall level. And even the fresh groceries, which were earlier pretty much confined to the physical stores, around 50% of the people are now purchasing it online. So this heightened online shopping is leading to the emergence of this omnichannel in Malaysia. And one of our recent surveys has depicted that 86% consumers and shoppers, they are very comfortable in purchasing both online versus offline. And if we look at within the channel, the important point is that on the one hand, online is increasing significantly. As you can see that before COVID, it was 60%, but now it's in the range of almost 90%. But at the same time, physical channels are also not going down. And this is a great implication for the retailers as well as the marketeers. So consumers are taking both online and physical side by side. And if we just do some micro-analysis, this is an interesting emerging trend that the categories are purchased in physical stores as well as online at the same rate. So even categories like dairy, which was earlier a very typical physical store category, is now equally purchased in the online setting. So that's something which is really emerging in case of the omnichannel behavior. But there are two more interesting things I want to highlight over here. If you look at the basket size for the online, it's it's better than the offline. So almost every spend is 340 ringgit versus 248 ringgit in the physical store. And the second point is that in physical stores, where shoppers and consumers, they have the option to pay in cash, they are now using the digital means. And this is very interesting because back in 2019, we did a research in terms of the cashless payment, and we found out that 2/3 were preferring cash when purchasing groceries. And now the behavior is completely opposite of that. So emergence of cashless and digital payment system is also reshaping the omni-channel behavior. So if I see that in totality, there is a huge influx towards the omni-channel behavior. So that is going to redefine the future of retail. So let's look into 3 key factors which are going to have a big impact in terms of the future of retail. The first and the foremost is the infrastructure and the business model planning, because as consumers and the shoppers are having the omni-channel shopping behavior, they want to have a seamless experience. So therefore, the right infrastructure and the business model is critical. Secondly, it is also very important to have the new go-to-marketing strategy. The reason for that is that the traditional marketing cannot cater to this digital shopping behavior. And last but not the least, the data analysis and the insights capabilities is also becoming more and more critical, because we want to drive the satisfaction of the consumers And that is possible when, based on the data and understanding of the shoppers, we can tailor-make the offerings to the consumers. So these are the three key factors or pillars who are going to define the future of retail. Let's have a review of this. So the first one is the infrastructure and the business model planning. Although the shoppers are now going in both physical as well as online, but still we find out that the drivers for physical shopping versus online shopping are different. So on the left-hand side, you see that what consumers and shoppers are looking for in an offline or physical store. So they want experience, they want instant gratification, they want interaction with the staff, and then they want to try the product and then have the option of returning the product if it is not satisfying their needs. Whereas on the online, it is convenience, product range, satisfaction, and attractive promotions. So what consumers are looking for is a seamless integration of online and physical. And that is possible if we are able to plan our infra as well as business model accordingly. By the way, I just want to highlight one very important point over here, that omnichannel does not mean that you should be present everywhere or you should be something for everyone. What it does mean is that you are present where it makes most sense and have the right touch points and then execute it flawlessly. That is what is required. So hence, instead of building the channel strategies in isolation like online strategy and offline strategy, we need to develop a common view, which means that there should be a seamless transition between online and offline. And this is possible if we make the shopper or the consumer at the center and then build the channel strategy around that. So that's something which is very, very important. So common view of the consumer. Secondly, that there has to be inventory optimization across online and offline. So that's the second very important point. And in future, some of the offline stores will become the demand fulfill center. And that's something which will play a big role to drive the omnichannel shopping habits. The third important point is to develop the network of partners. As a retailer or as a manufacturer, you don't need to invest at each and every point of the supply chain. Rather, you should have those partners who could help you for the demand fulfillment. And lastly, engagement at each and every touch point. You cannot have a strategy to engage customers only at one touch point and ignore the others. It has to be a holistic strategy. So that's something which is very critical with respect to the first factor, that is building the infrastructure and having the right business model. Let's look at a couple of examples. So one thing which we are looking at for the physical stores is that the golden stores are changing. So in our NielsenIQ terminology, we call the stores golden stores for FMCG, which are responsible for 80% of the sales of the total FMCG bucket. Before COVID, those stores were located in the job districts or around the transit hubs. But due to the COVID, all shopping shifted to the proximity of homes. And in future, some will surely go back to office and therefore they will go back to their normal routine, but some will continue to work from home. So therefore, the store proximity or the store availability has to be redefined and has to be rechanged. Similarly, another way that the physical store owners are actually engaging in the online by using the technology. So they are having ability to scan the code inside the store and put the products into the virtual cart. So whether the shopper can go and check out at the cash counter, or they can leave it in their virtual cart and check out later on, and then the retailers will be delivering it to their home. So that's how the integration of physical and online is going to happen. So that's the first factor. Let's move on to the second factor. So as we discussed that the path to purchase is going to change, and it is going to be a hybrid path to purchase, not a straight line where there will be a role of physical as well as online. Therefore, the traditional marketing will not be able to generate the right results. So the marketing has to evolve so that we can deliver the right messaging at the right touch point. For example, as you can see, that one of our research shows that almost 2/3 of the consumers, they want to compare prices, they want to compare the specifications, or they want to see the reviews of others before making a purchase. So in that case, you can't just rely on traditional mass broadcasting. You have to personalize the message. You have to personalize broadcast the message to the shoppers. And therefore, use of artificial intelligence or machine learning is gonna play a very, very critical role. Similarly, some of the voice marketing tools are also play a very important role over here, as voice recognition products are emerging, and our ability to have voice recognition in part of our devices is increasing. So be it iPhone Siri or Samsung Bixby or Google Home, all these devices, whether it's the personal assistant or is the speaker Alexa, like Amazon Alexa, so all of them are gonna play a very important role in personalizing the messaging, and then delivering those messages using AR and VR. I think that's gonna play another important role in terms of the marketing. Let's look at a couple of examples over here. So based on the history and the search results, we will personalize the message, deliver it through AR, and then the shopper and the consumers, they will be able to evaluate the different option in the AR and VR environment and move forward around that. So another example is with respect to the voice marketing. As I said, that voice assistants and the smart speakers, they are exploding right now, and there is higher utilization by the shoppers and the consumers in this age, and therefore those voice marketing methodologies can also help us to personalize the message. So the key takeaway from the second factor is how to personalize the broadcast. And the third factor, which is going to play a very important role, is the use of data and analytics. And use of data and analytics will become absolutely critical in the future of retail, because not only attracting the customers is important, but also retaining them is very, very important. So this attraction and retention will be based on advanced analytics and then personalizing the offering for those customers. So building this quality customer database is gonna be very, very important in the future retail. But not just the transaction data is gonna be important. It is equally important to integrate that transactional data with the other sources of data, such as the consumers and shoppers' online perceptions, comments, and history of interaction with the different touch points. So therefore, Twitter data, Google data, or other sources of third-party data is also very critical to be integrated into the transactional data or the customer database. And then the third important point over here is that once we have understood the customer, then we need to have the means and capabilities to customize the offering to those to the consumers, and then have the ability to deploy those insights and make difference. So in this analytics and the database retail, there will be first step, which would be identification of the most profitable consumer cohorts, and then personalizing the offering to them and utilizing the technology to see that where it is going to make most impact. So for example, using that eye tracking, we can actually track the interest of shoppers on the online or offline aisle, and we can see that where their interest is the highest. In this case, as you can see, that the red zones are the areas where the customers have most of the gazing, and therefore we can optimize the sales of the products by looking at the areas where they are looking at and finding the way forward over there. So, if I would like to summarize the future of retail, as I mentioned, that there are three most important factors and pillars which we need to focus on. The first one is the harmonization of online and offline. The online and the offline channel strategy should not exist in isolation. It should revolve around the customer, and therefore it should be a harmonized strategy for a unified experience across online and offline. The second most important aspect is that expanding the traditional marketing strategies and personalizing the messaging and having engagement with customers across the various touch points. And the third and also equally critical is having the data sets and insights for the customer's acquisition. That is a very important capability, and then driving their satisfaction throughout the customer journey process by the means of personalized offerings to them. So that's how we actually would like to see the future of the retail to evolve around. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Hi, Arslan. Sorry, hi. Sorry for the delay there. I was just taking in all of the information. So there's harmonization, personalization, as well as data-driven systems across online and offline retailing systems, right? I think there's a question here. So these are really great options, and these are amazing. I think it's great to have all these new data-driven but personally, would you what kind of innovations in offline and online would you recommend for the Malaysian market, the Malaysian retail market specifically, if you could provide any insight on that?
Sure. So essentially, the shoppers want to purchase the products regardless of the channel, whether it's online and offline. So my point of view over here is that we need to make sure that the products which we are developing for our Malaysian customers, they should have a more integrated strategy across online and offline. I think this is something which is very critical. Right now, we do find a disconnect over here. So we have an online strategy, and therefore online campaigns, online product, online assortment, and then we have a physical or offline strategy, and therefore those two strategies or those two channel plans are not talking to each other. I think it's critical that those two strategies should speak to each other and they become harmonized. So I think that's one of the most important things. So if there is a challenge to have one product in one channel, but we can't replicate in another, then it would create a problem in future, because consumers and shoppers, they want to have a seamless experience. Yeah, I think that's something which is very critical.
Thank you, Arslan. There's also another question on methods of personalization and engagement. What are some of your recommendations for for Malaysians as well as Southeast Asians? Maybe a specific example of what you think would work in those two markets in terms of offline or online personalization. Because we went through a few examples, but I'm curious to know what you think, because you have a lot of experience in this area too.
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. The important point is that we need to identify that in the path to purchase, whether it's physical or whether it's digital, what are the important touch points? And if we identify those important touch points, then we need to have specific messages for those touch points. I think this is something which is very, very critical for us, that we have identified the right touch points, and then we talk about, we personalize messages on those touch points. So for example, if we identified that the reviews on a certain online website is something which is very critical for the customers, then we should have some kind of messaging in the review section over there. So identify the right touch points on the customer path to purchase, on the customer journey, and then also highlight and also customize the messaging for those touch points. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I like that because I like innovation. So we have two audience. Questions. One is from Saji Rajapan from Zoom. Thank you so much for asking your question. And he asks, while I agree that more consumers are buying more things online, online is still only a small fraction of the total retail transactions in Malaysia and worldwide. I believe that it is still less than 10% in Malaysia. So his question is, does NielsenIQ see a big change in those numbers anytime soon?
Yeah, I think that's something which I shared in my slides at the start, that I agree with you that in certain FMCG categories, initially the online shopping was relatively low. So for example, dairy. Dairy was very focused on the physical retail, but now if you look at the dairy purchase, there is hardly any difference between online and offline. Another example is the fresh categories. Earlier, fresh was all from the flea market or in the physical stores, but now there is almost equal purchasing happening in the online. So with this, adjusted lifestyle where consumers are restricted to go out, I think this is evolving. The online shopping is evolving, and this will continue to prevail. And the reason for that is that even when it becomes the relatively new normal, there will be a large chunk of customers who will be still working from home, because the organizations have seen that this model works. Even the employees think that this is like driving their satisfaction. So therefore, it is gonna be a future of retail where there will be both online and offline shopping happening simultaneously, side by side. Yep.
All right, thank you so much. And I know this is not statistics, but rhetorically, I bought this online, I bought this online, I bought this in retail. So I guess that's,
yeah. So we call it sample of one.
I'm a sample of one. Yes. So we have another question. So this is from Vijendran Zoom pertaining to mom and pop shops. So he wants to know what are the barriers to entry for these mom and pop shops, and specifically for QR code enablement. So I hear that the partnerships needed with the service providers within the ecosystem brings up questions about end-to-end costs. So I think that's probably one of the worries. What are other barriers as well to these entries?
Yeah, I think that essentially the adoption of technology is gonna take some time in certain cases, because these mom and pop stores, they are very traditional stores, what we call the brick and mortar stores. So these brick and mortar stores, they are very traditional stores. But I think this adoption of technology has been accelerated because of the COVID. And I think you will see now that many of these mom and pop stores, they are also now accepting the cashless payments. And in future, they will see a lot more evolution on that front with respect to the QR code enablement or utilization of other technological means to drive the omnichannel behavior.
Thank you so much, Arslan. I think that's a pretty good question, answer to the question. We also have one question from Navanil. I hope that I pronounced that right. If I didn't, I'm sorry. But this is a question from Zoom. Will behavior go back to normal, i.e. offline driven, in terms of post-COVID-19?
I think this partially yes, because as I said that earlier, the golden stores were located in two important areas in the job district or around the transit hubs. But now they are moving towards the residential area. Once this COVID, hopefully, situation is over, I think there will be partial returning back. But a large chunk of customers will not go back to their normal means of doing things. So therefore, this new normal is here to stay, and it's probably gonna drive in future also.
Thank you so much. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's very important to harmonize and make sure that you have a good offline as well as online strategy to deal with retail in the coming future. We have no more questions, but I would like to thank everyone from Zoom for giving in your questions. Once we're done, I think we're done with the questions right now. We're done with the questions right now? Okay, cool. So that means that we're going to go off to the next section soon. I'll see you later. Thank you so much, Arslan.
Thank you. Thank you very much.